Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Brandon. Today, I'm continuing my top 50 albums of 2017 list. Today will be numbers 20 to 11. Hope everyone had a great holiday. Yesterday was Christmas, so let's just get right into this with number 20. We have Anatomia with Cranial Obsession. Death Doomers from Japan. Been around for a good while. This album is just insanely heavy. They've experimented with their sound a little bit. Instead of a straightforward death doom approach that they're known for, I would say there's a high level of experimentation here. The songs are getting longer. There's a couple that reach over the 10-minute length. You've got one that's 15. It's very, very atmospheric for a Death Doom album. It's just drenched, dripping atmosphere. Totally fell in love with this album as soon as I heard it. Top 20 album for me this year. Anatomia, Cranial Obsession, out on Nuclear War Now Productions. Fantastic record. And at 19, the award for Best Black Sabbath Clone goes to Purple Hill Witch. This is Celestial Cemetery. Purple Hill Witch are from Norway. This is their second full-length release. Came out on the Church Within Records, and by far, for me, this was my favorite Doom release that I heard this year. Flawless execution. The vocals have a sort of unique sense to them, much like Ozzy and Black Sabbath. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying there's a unique approach that makes it stand out a little bit from the likes of, say, Electric Wizard or, some other bands that were on this list. And this record I've only been listening to for a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks now. And it might be a case of that honeymoon effect where as soon as you hear a record, you just fall in love with it, and then, a couple months down the line, you're like, it's actually not that good. But I am very confident that this record is just absolutely perfect. I mean, I have no doubts about that. The opening track, Ghouls in Leather, all the way to the final track, Burnt Offering. Just a hell of a record. It really is. And one of the best artworks of the year, for sure. Great record from Purple Hill Witch. Number 18, Triumvir Foul with Spiritual Bloodshed. This was a Vrasupat release. I did a review on this album earlier in the year, and I normally don't do reviews, but that should speak volumes of how highly I think of this album. It's a chaotic death metal album, much like Ascended Dead earlier on this list, but just, oh man, I think this record is leaps and bounds ahead of that release if I were to compare the two. It's got some revenge style, like chaotic drumming. I can feel that Jay Reed influence in there, but firmly a death metal album. It's very cavernous, very gloomy, very dark, and there's a lot of solid lead work going on underneath all the heavy riffing. I mean, talk about just a total ass beater. Serpentine Seed, Spiritual Bloodshed, the title track, all the way up to Vrasupat Latian Rites, the closing track. I mean, one of the best death metal releases you'll hear this year. Triumvir Foul out of Portland, Oregon, with Spiritual Bloodshed. Outstanding. Number 17, a band that you should all be familiar with, Dying Fetus, Wrong One to Fuck With. For all of the poking fun that the title of this album got, and I will admit it is a little bit cringeworthy. I certainly wouldn't wear a t-shirt that says Wrong One to Fuck With in huge letters on the back. But Dying Fetus just absolutely you know, they've been around, they've been doing it for decades now, a staple in the brutal death metal scene, a model of consistency. This is just continuing to build off of albums like Descent into Depravity and Reign Supreme. Here with Wrong One to Fuck With, the bar has been set, and they hit it. They nail it. Nail on the head. Absolutely insane album. Heavy as fuck. Brutal death metal. It's got tons of grooves, tons of slams, tons of breakdowns. Relapse Records release. What more can I say about Dying Fetus that hasn't already been said before? Number 17 on my list. Number 16, we have Nexul, Paradigm of Chaos. Hell's Headbangers release. Nexul from Texas, members of Nyogta Blizz. Black death metal, much like, I would say, there isn't a great comparison for Nexul, because I think as far as that black death metal approach, very unique, very Texas sounding, because that Nyogta Blizz, that's sort of, there's another band that they're all in that slips my mind right now. I should know it, but they all share members. They all have that unique sort of distinct sound to them when it comes to a black and death metal approach. And I found on this album, with songs like Chaosifer Tower and Hexecration, that there were some riffs. There were some serious riffs on here, and sometimes on records like this, it's tough to dig the riffs out of the just total oral chaos going on, but they do it, and I think this was my top Black Death album of the year. Just absolute insanity from Nexul on Paradigm of Chaos. Number 15, The Ruins of Beverast. This is Exuviae. It's a Van Records release. From Germany. The most amazing thing about this band is it is a one-man project. And if you listen to this album, first of all, it's a hell of a ride. It's kind of a dense journey. It's tough to get all the way through in one listen. It's over an hour long. It's not an album you can just throw on and enjoy. It's an album that you have to immerse yourself in. It really is. But to think that one guy wrote and recorded all of the parts for this album is nothing short of outstanding. It's just unbelievable when you take that into account. And it's a black metal album mixed with heavy doom elements, death metal elements, as well as there is a very noticeable Native American feel on this album from some sort of chanting clips that they use, some tribal style of instrumentation on here. Very interesting that a German band would go the Native American roots, but it works. It's, for a long time, this album was in my top 10, if not top 5, but just there was a slew of records that came out after it that I loved just a little bit more. But The Ruins of Beverast with Exuviae, an outstanding record. Definitely check that one out. Number 14, Perverted Ceremony. This is Sabbat of Behaziel. Nuclear War Now Productions. 2-man black metal from Belgium. This one has gotten a lot of hype throughout the year, and I believe rightfully so. Absolutely nailing the old school Beharit style of just Finnish raw black metal. A little bit of death metal mixed in there too. It's not all just straight up black metal, but the vocals are ghastly. The bass is very audible, which I tend to like. I don't like just a straight up guitar driven approach, as the record almost slips and falls out. Yeah, and you know, this shouldn't be a surprise to most of you. I've talked about Perverted Ceremony a lot. Great album, great band. Uh, just released a 2-song EP. Can't wait to hear that. Number 13, Pallbearer, Heartless. Just a downright beautiful album. Aesthetically, musically, everything going on here is just brilliant. I love this album. I love Pallbearer. Absolutely outstanding doom metal mixed with, you know, I would struggle to just call Pallbearer a straight up doom metal band, because I figured that there's a lot of different elements that go into making an album like this. There might be some of Pallbearer's heaviest material on here, songs like Cruel Road and Heartless. There's some straight up almost like breakdowns, but done in the way that only Pallbearer can do it, because you know, you can't just be a doom metal band and throw in a heavy ass part like that. But Pallbearer does it, and they get away with it. I don't think I like this album as much as their previous album, but it's definitely a worthy addition to their discography. This band, hardworking. They've been touring their asses off in support of this album. If you get a chance to go see Pallbearer, do it. They're outstanding live. And for me, I think my favorite track on here is Live Survival, and then Dancing in Madness right after it is equally as great. Not a bad song on here. Just really great stuff from Pallbearer. If I had to go on spins alone that these records got, this one would probably be in the top 5. But it lands at number 12. It's the Black Dahlia Murder with Nightbringers. An outstanding, I want to say return to form, because this sounds a lot like Nocturnal era, the Black Dahlia Murder. But I personally liked the albums that came before this. When you talk about Ritual and Abysmal and not Defloret. God, I'm so bad today. My memory is absolutely shot. Call it a holiday hangover, if you will. But yeah, this sounds so much like Nocturnal era, the Black Dahlia Murder. I really think the addition of a new guitarist on this record just breathed life into this band. Everything sounds crisp, refreshed. You know, you hate to see a band fall into a rut of just releasing album after album that sounds exactly the same. I appreciate consistency, but at the same time, the Black Dahlia Murder have done here what great bands do, and they find a way to reinvigorate themselves and put out an album that is clearly the Black Dahlia Murder, but at the same time, just ripping, just, oh man. Widowmaker, the opening track, Matriarch, the title track, Nightbringers, my favorites, Kings of the Night World, As Good as Dead, which has like a slight heavy metal feel to it as well. I don't see how these guys aren't the kings of melodic death metal right now, even over a band like At the Gates, which they have been oft compared to. You know, in my opinion, I don't see anyone doing it better. And the Black Dahlia Murder, I think, unfairly get labeled as a mall metal band, and I couldn't. I don't think that's further from the truth. Go see this band, go talk to these guys in person, and you'll know that they are metal lifers, and they are down for the scene. Trevor Strand has the obituaries column that he writes, where he's constantly, you know, putting out for smaller bands. You know, just all around good dudes writing solid music. Black Dahlia Murder and Nightbringers at number 12. And then at number 11, Immolation, Atonement, Nuclear Blast Records. I think that I can firmly say that this is one of Immolation's best records yet. I personally liked Kingdom of Conspiracy. I liked Majesty and Decay. Some people say that those albums were subpar, that the production was not up to snuff. But for me, I liked them. But Immolation with Atonement blows those albums out of the water. And I think that you could put this next to albums like Here and After and Failures for Gods, and it stands up. It's absolutely just amazing that a band this far into their career can put out an album this fucking good. I don't know if anyone expected Immolation to put out an album this good, which is why you're seeing it on so many end of the year lists, because it just blew people away. People weren't expecting it. People were, when an Immolation album is announced, you go, okay, probably going through the motions, going to put out an album that they're going to be able to tour on, and end up playing most of their old shit anyways. But I haven't really heard anyone say that they don't like this album, and they play a lot of these songs live because people actually want to hear them. You have songs like When the Jackals Come, Fostering the Divide, Destructive Currents, Lower, the title track Atonement, and the closing track Epiphany. All absolutely outstanding songs. Immolation, death metal giants. Yeah, an absolute hell of a record that kind of came out of nowhere because I was not expecting Immolation to release an album this good. But then again, maybe everyone should have, because it's Immolation after all. So that's it for 2211 on this list. A lot of bangers. 10 to number 1 coming up in the next video. Thank you as always for liking these videos, commenting on them, subscribing. It's awesome. So until the next time, take care.